that will bring us to another next module, the issue of the spreading of sin. Remember, sin is a twist. Is a twist of the real nature of the true nature of man. Is a perversion. Okay, is a perversion, and then again is a rebellion. Is a revolt, which is Adam's issue. Is a revolt. Is a flat, complete rebellion. Is a treasonal. As they say in felony, it was a treason. He rebelled against the government of God. But this nature is not a problem. Now, I want you to see something. In Genesis chapter 4, the Bible began with the opening statements, and Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. And she named him Cain. And after a while, she gave birth again to another one named Adam. I'm named Abel, rather. Now, you have two sons of Adam and Eve. And it's interesting that these young men began to grow, grew up. At some point, the scripture said Abel brought God offerings because he began to take care of animals. And now you can see now they are now dealing with something different. It wasn't that way. So he brought God offering. And when he brought God offering, God was pleased with his offering. And Cain brought God offering. God didn't like it. And something happened in Cain. The Bible said in verse 7 of chapter 4, if you start reading from verse 7 down, he was wroth. He was unhappy. And he became jealous of his brother. In fact, he was so bad that he thought of thought of dealing with killing his brother. And God spoke to him and said, "Be careful, sin lieth at your door." Now, the scripture says, sin lieth at your door, but you must master him. Now, that place is quite instructive. If you will not mind, look at that verse 7 of Genesis chapter 4. If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Now, God addressed sin like a human being, like a personality. He said, he lies at your door, but he desires to have you. He, look at that. He desires to have you, all right? And you must, master him. You must kind of, rule over him. So he addressed sin as a human being. In fact, Jesus referred this in John chapter 8 when he said the devil was a murderer in the very beginning. He could not abide in the truth. He was a murderer. So you see what Ephesians chapter 2 says to us, people working in partnership with the devil. And that's why I said sin is Satan's inherited nature. It's an acquired nature of Satan operating through man. Now, the problem there was a problem of offering. Cain brought offering to God, though, not to the devil. Abel brought offering to God, not to the devil. The first offering that was ever done on this earth caused problem. And the problem was someone offered a better and a quantity and qualitative offering. The other guy didn't offer well. And what was the problem of his offering? I'll give you an insight into it. Number one, he brought offering from the fruit of the earth. Remember, the earth was cursed, so he came from the place of curse. Number two, it wasn't the best that he could have brought. And because of that, God never took it. Because in giving, when you don't put God first, then it doesn't reflect, that what you give reflects if you put God first or not. So God never took it. God never, received that offering. As a result, God didn't, respond to him properly by blessing him and empowering him. But Abel gave God offering from the flocks. When we talk about judgment now, you will see the light, because God had killed an animal, which we referred in our previous lectures. Killed an animal, skinned it, and covered them. So he realized that anything you are doing has to be connected to blood. So Abel had that understanding that blood now has become the new covering and the link to redemption of man. So it's quite a prophetic thing. So he gave from the flock of from his flock the firstlings and the best that he gave. You see, because we need to understand how God deals with us and what had happened. Man had fallen and fallen from the glory of God. Now our relationship with God is not the way it's supposed to be. So anything that man will deal with God, or any dealing with God, has to be breached. Okay, there has to be a breach. There has to be a common ground upon which that has to be done. Otherwise, that will bring another judgment. The reason for that is because sin can never, ever, ever be accepted by God. An offering that does not have blood tied to it is as because when you understand the offering really in itself, I've said this sometime past in Lagos. When you give an offering, you did not give money, nor fruit, nor goat, nor cow. What you gave is yourself. And God isn't going to take sin that does not have blood. The essence and the reason for the blood is to cover you so that God does not judge you and kill you at the same immediately. Because he's so holy and so pure that he cannot take sin. So God cannot receive sin unto himself. It has to be something different. There has to be blood coming. And it does seem that Abel understood that either from Adam and Eve, which supposedly what must have happened, that he had that understanding. No, Cain would have traded his apple and fruits with his brother and said, okay, can you take some of this and give me also this thing, since this is what God requires and what is obtainable to deal with God. And then God will take it. So the thing is no longer, you see, sin is such a terrible thing. It's no longer a matter of I have a willing to do something, no, and I'm willing to do something. No. You have to do it in God's way, not longer the way you want to do it. The reason is, again, is because man has become sin. And when offering means giving you, offering, when you give money, when you give land, when you give something, you are not giving that material. Spiritually, God regards it as you as a person. That's who you are giving. And when you hand over, God isn't going to take sin. Man has become sin. And so God is not going to take it. He's not going to take it at all. There has to be something that will cover. There has to be something that will bridge. There has to be something temporarily that will, die in place of you, really, for God to receive it. And that was what Abel did. Because he gave a burnt offering, he had to put those goats there and slaughter them and put fire. Blood went forth. So we begin to see the issue of blood redemption, the mystery of blood that will finally be the link to free mankind later in the end. So we see that happening in Genesis chapter 4. And somewhere we see another person becoming a mother, Lamech. It started growing. It started growing. Now, the growing doesn't really matter whether I'm talking about the Noah's generation, which I have spoken sometime in, maybe I think at the program, because Noah's generation is where the culmination of sin got its peak at first time that made God wipe away that generation, because, which is likely what we will see in our generation, most probably, again, because Jesus said he will return, the days of return will be like the days of Noah. And what are these days of Noah? Very simple things. The days of Noah were the days of genetic mutation, because there was hybrid or crossbreed on the earth. The fallen angels came and married, women, and then gave birth to giants on the earth. That was Satan's ploy to kind of destroy a pure human race that can be saved. It was so bad that we have only one household that weren't corrupt in that generation. The Bible said they were so corrupt that all the imaginations of their heart, it was not just what they do, but everything they think was already on the negative. So that was a full-blown AIDS, so to say. Sin has come to its peak. And God said, I can't continue this way. My spirit will no longer strive with man. And I am going to wipe them away. In other words, the sin nature started in Adam, but it's like it kept growing. Okay? It kept growing in the consciousness of man. And like a virus, eating, up the nature, when you watch some of these funny movies of virus entering some these Hollywood movies, and then you start seeing the virus growing and the human beings are transforming into another thing. Are you there? It keep growing until it comes to the full and they turn into another creature, another nature. That's exactly the way it's in. It got to the peak of it, and then God had to take out that generation. Now, the thing there is this. Whether you see sin in Sodom and Gomorrah, which is after Genesis chapter 6, 7 began the flood, the destruction, and then the next human race began through Noah. But again, you still see that sin still came in. Okay, it gradually started growing again and filled the earth, on to the point that chapter 11, you find Nimrod, who was a politician and an archetype of the Antichrist, who is going to be a politician, because that was the first powerful politician on the earth, Nimrod, who got the human beings together and said, let us not spread, let's build a city and for ourselves and make name for ourselves and let it reach heaven, and we don't really need God in this matter. Okay, and the Bible said God came down and said, these guys are going to do stupid and crazy things if we don't stop them, and then he scattered them. And then after that, you see the Abraham generation, God found a new person that he can walk with and began to plan the redemption of mankind, and sin was growing everywhere. But it's interesting that the new Noah, who was the new beginning of a human race on the earth, that seed of sin is still in man. Why? That's the question. I thought that after wiping away these guys, you won't be there. No, every human being born carries that nature inside of them. Now, the funniest thing the funniest thing about it is that it cannot be modified, it cannot be rehabilitated, it cannot be refurbished or renewed. No way. It is totally corrupt and must be done with forever and ever. So you still see it, and I explained something. This thing seems to be like a seed that grows in man and has what? And become a full-blown tree, a full-blown AIDS. Starts from small HIV and goes to AIDS and finally ruin mankind. So we see it that place going through. Now, after Noah, we see in chapter 11, another very serious figure came up, a politician on the earth by the name Nimrod, Genesis chapter 11. And he was a mighty politician, which is an archetype of the Antichrist, what he's going to be. And he's a politician. And he got the whole people together and didn't mind about God and said, let's build us a city for ourselves and make a name for ourselves. We don't need God in this matter. Well, God came and stopped them and scattered them. In chapter 12, Abraham began. And then down the line there, you now find Sodom and Gomorrah. This mankind has spread, and that corruption has come, to its height again, to a particular society, Sodom and Gomorrah, that they were even willing to, continue with their sexual perversion with angels. They told Lot, bring those guys here. Let's have them. In fact, the Bible said the whole city, from the men to the boys. And that's the total corruption, the total perversion, twisted, sinning its manifestation, fullness again. That there is no more restraint. The society no longer, have turned. It's not like some say, okay, we are this way, the other guys are this way. No, these guys are all that way. In fact, Lot even offered them his daughters. They said, no, we don't want those ones. Don't worry about them. We need the guys. And I don't know what their women were doing and where they were in the house. Well, they don't care. Maybe they are their own company too. And that one was destroyed. But every now and then, when sin gets to a certain level, there will be a judgment on it and wipe away. And just waiting for the time when the whole issue will be done and dealt with in human history. Now, I'm going to make a statement which will, probably will form questions and probably ask questions, and I want you to think through it in our next class. Think about it for a moment. Why is it that God cannot refurbish or renew or rehabilitate man? Why is it God who cannot do that, or he wouldn't want to do that? Because Jesus said, unless you are born again. In other words, this particular one, nothing can be done, no remedy, not at all. Thank you.